So, talking about this Iron Curtain, here's what some of the other realities were, which quickly formed these alliances, which are here to this day, and altered forms. So we have the formation of NATO versus the Warsaw Pact. And here's NATO's symbol, the Warsaw Pact. April 1949, U.S., Canada, Iceland, and 9 other European nations created the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, NATO. In 1955, when NATO admitted West Germany into the NATO, remember, Germany now is divided into East and West because the Russians occupy the eastern portion due to the defeating Hitler. Khrushchev then created the Warsaw Pact. Here's essentially what these are supposed to mean. If Russia, for example, or anybody, but it's mainly aimed at Russia, would attack Iceland or any of the countries that are a part of this North Atlantic Treaty, it's as if they've declared war on all of them. And so it's a way of trying to prevent one side from attacking the other. And then the Warsaw Pact went the same way. So it'd be this way to say, Russia's saying, if you attack this one country here, it's as if you attacked us. And so, and by the way, NATO was used by Clinton to attack Serbia for a civil war happening under Milosevic. And Obama just used NATO to bomb Libya when they had a civil war. If Libya and Serbia didn't attack the United States, then how does that operate with the function of NATO? What it means is NATO is more ambiguous now, and it's changed. You'll just have to think about that yourself. Anyways, okay, so forgive this cold again. My voice is obviously not getting better. So, decolonization in the Cold War conflict. What do we see? The Republic of India is created in 1947, and they get aid from the USSR. Remember that the British were the ones who occupied, colonized India. Remember the Secret Garden, Sherlock Holmes, anything you always see this discussion of we're the British in India, right? So it shouldn't surprise you that many Indians didn't like the West and democracy for that very reason, and they sided with the Soviet camp. India didn't go communist, so they had a strong communist presence, still do in some parts, but they were getting aid from the USSR. Pakistan got aid from the United States, and we supported a very heavy-handed dictator there. Indonesia, 1949, aid from the USSR. Remember, by the way, Indonesia is the largest Islamic country in the world, and it was getting aid from the USSR. America helped a military dictator come to power in 1967, and in fact, here's a comic illustrating the Suharto legacy in Indonesia, highs and lows. These are the murdered. The man that we put in power is estimated to have slaughtered several 100,000 people or more, based on if they were communist or close to it. And this is kind of common, just as a side note. In the Islamic world, there were a lot of groups that were nationalists, secular, even if they were still religiously Muslim, and communist. And the U.S. decided with other Western countries that it would be better to support the most extreme elements that were anti-nationalist and communist in the way of fighting off the Soviet sphere. And so in a lot of Islamic countries, some argue that the reason why Al-Qaeda or those kind of groups that we now associate the Islamic world with just Islamic fundamentalism is that in fact in the Islamic world the US was always worried about communism. And now we never think of an atheistic ideology being associated with something that's coming from an Islamic country. So, did we help kill off all the opposition? And is Islamic extremism in the Islamic world the only groups that have actually been able to survive the Cold War? That's a question. I can't really. That's something that I think that is just worth thinking about or looking into. All right. In any case, the Congo, we see that 60s aid from USSR. We saw about that with Lumumba. Then America helped bring a military dictator to power, Mobutu. Cuba, pro-American dictator, was Batista. He ends up becoming overthrown in a Marxist nationalist revolution led in 1959. So decolonization often comes with elements that are seen as too pro-Soviet for the U.S. because, again, remember, it's the liberal democratic world that colonized the majority of the world, not the Soviets. Soviets had their own kind of colonialism and dominance of other countries, but keep in mind that it was the West. It was the French who colonized Vietnam before there was a revolution in the Vietnam War with the U.S. I go to India, Africa. You got to think about that, Okay? Anyhow. So the Cuban Missile Crisis, actually I'm going to go back. I'm going to stop here.